Hi, my name is Bethany Travers, Health Communications Coordinator with the Barnstable County Department of Health and Environment. Earlier today, myself and Sean O'Brien, Director of the Barnstable County Department of Health and Environment, made the following presentation to the Barnstable County Commissioners at their weekly meeting. To view the meeting unedited and in its entirety, please visit our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/user/Barnstable County. This presentation represents the Barnstable County Department of Health and Environment's assessment of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's draft review entitled Sole Source Aquifer Project Review of the Multipurpose Machine Gun Range proposed by the Massachusetts Army National Guard to be constructed at Joint Base Cape Cod. The Massachusetts Army National Guard is proposing to construct a multipurpose machine gun range at Joint Base Cape Cod to train and qualify soldiers in use of automatic machine guns. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, per the Safe Drinking Water Act, conducted an exhaustive assessment of the potential environmental and public health impacts of the machine gun range to Cape Cod sole source aquifer. EPA concluded that the proposed project may present a significant public health hazard based on the volume of potential contaminants that would be released to the environment, specifically in relation to the sole source aquifer. On the right-hand side of your screen is an image of Joint Base Cape Cod and the location of the proposed machine gun range, which is outlined in red. It encompasses a smaller area outlined in black that represents a now inactive shooting range on the base. Cape Cod sole source aquifer plays a central role in the conversation about the proposed machine gun range. The Cape Cod aquifer is the only source of drinking water to our region, hence the term sole source. The aquifer is glacial in origin and composed of highly permeable soils, such as sand and gravel, which make it susceptible to contamination. Any area designated as a sole source aquifer is protected by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency under Section 1424E of the Safe Drinking Water Act of 1974. The Cape Cod aquifer is divided into 6 recharge areas or lenses. The groundwater in the area of Camp Edwards on Joint Base Cape Cod has been designated as the Upper Cape Water Supply Reserve, which is part of the Sagamore Lens. It is protected under Chapter 47 of the Massachusetts Acts of 2002. The proposed machine gun range would be located over the Upper Cape Water Supply Reserve and the Sagamore Lens, which is the most productive part of the Cape Cod aquifer. Groundwater in the area of Joint Base Cape Cod provides approximately 3 million gallons of drinking water per day to 12 community public water supply systems in the towns of Sandwich, Bourne, Falmouth, Mashpee, and the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe. The Massachusetts Army National Guard is proposing a multi-purpose machine gun range at Camp Edwards on Joint Base Cape Cod to efficiently attain small arms training and weapons qualifications requirements within the state of Massachusetts, thereby eliminating extensive out-of-state travel and the associated expense. Phase 1 of the proposed range, which the EPA assessment addresses, would consist of 8 firing lanes spanning 138 acres across the Upper Cape Water Supply Reserve. On the right-hand side of your screen, you'll notice a graphic which shows what we call Zone 2 wellhead protection areas. These are the protected areas of the aquifer that discharge to a public water supply. There are 7 Zone 2s located within 1,000 feet down gradient of the proposed machine gun range. This includes 21 public wells supplying drinking water to Bourne, Falmouth, and Sandwich. It is approximated that 1.3 million bullets will be fired per year at the machine gun range, resulting in an almost 400% increase in the total number of bullets to be used annually across all ranges at Joint Base Cape Cod. Only copper ammunition would be used at the proposed range. No lead ammunition would be fired. Potential sources of contaminants include compounds related to propellants and residues deposited on the soil surface in the vicinity of firing lines, as well as bullet casings and fragments deposited on the soil surface. How does a machine gun range cause groundwater contamination? When the machine gun is discharged, primer residues and casings are deposited on the ground near the shooter. The bullets themselves, as well as bullet fragments, become embedded in the backstop berm, which is essentially a mound of soil to catch the bullets. If the bullets and fragments are not removed, they begin to break down in the soil. Over time, bullet components such as antimony, chromium, copper, lead, manganese, and nitroglycerin leach through the soil via rainwater and into the groundwater below. At the bottom of the graphic is a quote from the EPA draft assessment that we found to be particularly impactful. It reads, assuming a 50-year time frame under proposed annual loading and assuming limited range mitigation, there could be more than 275 tons of bullet components released to the environment. It's important to note also that the machine gun range is expected to be operational for 50 to 100 years. Now I will present a summary of EPA's findings. Water quality monitoring data from the inactive firing range was used to provide baseline contaminant conditions for soil and groundwater in this assessment. The inactive range is the central location for the machine gun range. As previously mentioned, the data showed the presence of bullet components including antimony, chromium, copper, lead, and manganese. Potential public health risks associated with these contaminants include increased cholesterol, allergic dermatitis, gastrointestinal distress, headaches, dizziness, lightheadedness, tremors, confusion, and even physical and neurological developmental delays in children. While the existing releases are actively and effectively managed, there is a concern about the cumulative impacts. And those are additional releases by the proposed range that would greatly increase mass loading of contaminants, thereby compounding an existing problem. More than $1.4 billion in resources have already been spent on groundwater remediation at Joint Base Cape Cod. EPA points out that there are concerns that adding another significant contaminant source into the aquifer would negate any ongoing groundwater restoration work that's presently underway. Other unresolved major concerns include a lack of commitment for regular bullet retrieval, inadequate media monitoring and quality control issues with previous monitoring, and insufficient best management practices to minimize the release of contaminants to the maximum feasible extent. It is uncertain that any combination of operations, maintenance, and monitoring practices can adequately reduce potential contamination to the aquifer so as to eliminate the threat of significant public health hazard. And finally, it has been determined that the proposed project does not sufficiently address environmental justice implications, change factors, and lack of environmental benefits. For example, 16,500 people across the towns of Bourne, Sandwich, Mashpee, and Falmouth would be disproportionately impacted by the threat to drinking water posed by the proposed machine gun range. Climate change may cause unpredictable weather patterns, including an increasing occurrence of extremes in rain or drought, which affect the resiliency of the aquifer and in turn groundwater rebound. Drought impacts coupled with operation of the firing range may also significantly increase the risk of larger and more severe fires that have the potential to negatively impact the underlying aquifer. And finally, sea level rise could result in an increased water table altitude as denser salt water pushes the fresh groundwater up from below, increasing susceptibility to aquifer contamination. The mission of the Barnstable County Department of Health and Environment is to promote a healthy Cape Cod community through disease prevention and control, health and safety education, environmental protection, and emergency preparedness. As such, we support the findings and recommendations put forth by the EPA that the proposed machine gun range at Joint Base Cape Cod presents a significant health hazard to Cape Cod's sole source aquifer and therefore public health. The public engagement process for the EPA's draft review is currently underway. EPA will accept public comments on this proposed decision for 60 days until June 26, 2023. During this time, the public and interested stakeholders may submit written comments for EPA's consideration to the email address on this slide. EPA will also hold a public hearing to receive oral comments on May 24th, 2023 at 7 o'clock p.m. at the Center for Active Living. This concludes the Department of Health and Environment's assessment of EPA's draft review of the proposed machine gun range at Joint Base Cape Cod. Thank you for listening.